Okay. Okay, so my name is Allison Hoffman. I'm one of our delivery directors at Intellias. I've got about 17 years of Lawson Infor experience, both on the technical side and within HR Talent, as well as Lawson S3. And most of my roles today, are managing some of our HR talent type work, as well as managing the resources that do that work. So Eric, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Yeah, I'm Eric Miller. I'm a senior technical consultant here at Intellias. Been working with Infor HR Talent for quite a few years now, and have quite a bit of experience on the technical and talent acquisition sides of HR Talent.
Okay. And you can see my PowerPoint right here.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay. So just a quick introduction on Intellias themselves. Intellias is headquartered in Dallas. We've been around since 1999. We are an alliance partner, and we have software offerings that some of you may run, such as our benefit add-ins and others. But then we also have a full suite of consulting services, really anything you need when it comes to Lawson S3 or Cloud Suite. Okay, so if we take a look at the agenda, these are some of the items we're going to touch on. We came up with this list just kind of thinking through, one, what is new in the Infor space, and two, what do we see as potential that maybe we're considering underutilized, where customers, should start to take a look at some of this stuff and determine if it would make sense for their organization. So we're kind of going to flip back and forth between Eric and myself. I'm going to kick us off with learning and development. So learning and development is one of Infor's newer modules. It doesn't necessarily, it sort of replaces Lawson's LMS. And I say that in a sort of manner because for any net new customers, you would utilize learning and development. But for those that are currently running LMS, it's not going away, it's still supported. But for those that are looking for some sort of learning management system, the learning and development module within Cloud Suite is where you would start. So if we think just a little bit about the module itself, it's a fully integrated learning management system. So you have, it's like any other, what we'll call module within HR Talent. So when you go to implement it, you're already, you're in the same system that GHR is. So you have your employee list available. You have, if you're running performance and goals, or you're running some of these other modules, it's all right there for you. There's no interfacing. It's all one system. There's a very flexible learning structure. There's, different types of activities. You can do sessions, you can use Zoom integration, you can have online content, pretty much anything that you would find in another LMS, you can find within the module. And then, as somewhat mentioned prior, there are data tie-ins to other modules. So you can set someone's goals, to kind of attach it to, well, you have to complete these 3 learning activities, or maybe you need to put someone on some sort of performance plan. You could say, in order to get off that performance plan, you need to complete XYZ. And then, like many of the other modules within HR Talent, there are integrated notifications and reminders. So hopefully you can take out any manual emailing, notifying, etc., and just build all those rules into the module itself. So there's a very consistent look and feel with the rest of the application. There is mobile functionality as well, but here's just a screenshot. So this is from the employee perspective. You can see that it is embedded within employee space. So from an employee perspective, going out and registering for activities or classes, or looking at their development plans, or actually taking the courses, it's all right there. It's not a separate URL they have to log into. You could even embed things within your pre-boarding or onboarding and have them, go directly to employee space and do certain trainings. There should be no integrations or, data feeds. And there's also delivered reporting for your administrators and managers. So, obviously from an administration perspective and or management, you're going to want to know, who on my team hasn't completed a required training, or maybe you want to look at the scores that they obtained in that training, or even how long is it taking them to complete some of these activities. That's probably more from an administration perspective. And then the final piece that is nice is the automated learning assignment through HR data. So the L&D module utilizes your eligibility groups. You can use eligibility groups that you've potentially already built, within benefits, absence, any other reason, or you can build new ones. And you can have nightly processes that essentially these actions run and they determine, oh, these 3 people became new hires today. They need to be assigned these 10 training items, or this person changed their job. And when we're in this new job, we need these 3 different trainings assigned. So lots of automation you can do. So your administrators are not manually having to go in and assign people. The one thing we do like to call out is there is no external content creation. That is a decision that Infor has made, that they're not going to include the functionality to actually create the content. So there's no content creator. We've seen customers, continue to use whatever content creation tool that they currently are using. And then, obviously they would just create the content there, the SCORM files, whatever it may be, and then you load it up and attach it to your activity. So I'll touch a little bit on the flexible learning structure, but at the core of it, there's activities. So your activities are essentially your courses. So dress code 101 or fire safety or whatever it might be. The activities could be something that is just something online to watch, kind of click through a PowerPoint, or more the SCORM format where, it's interactive, or your activities may eventually be what is considered a session. So in-person training, right? Or maybe not in person, but on Zoom. So you kind of, figure all that out as you're going through it, but there's lots of different options for how you want your sessions and your activities to be configured. And then there's the ability to create development plans, checklists, and certifications. So I know in the customer we're currently implementing, they have hundreds of development plans, based on the person's role in the organization. And within the development plan, then it's just basically grouping all of your activities. So you can assign someone a development plan, and then it inherits, all the training that they have to take. And then there are multiple format options for that online content. We haven't run across any content that can't, be used within Infor. I think the traditional format, the most common is the SCORM format. So that's what we see the most, but you can see listed here on the slide, there are other format options that you can use. Okay, and then just a couple call outs to some of those data tie-ins. The first being performance management. So as employees are completing their different learning activities and objectives, you can have it automatically, give them a competency, a skill, or a credential. So maybe they have to go through, 2 courses in order to learn, or I'm sorry, in order to obtain some sort of competency. So you can automatically set that up and have it do that for you. That data will then automatically flow right to the employee, their talent profile. Also with succession management, when you think about succession, you're probably going to be thinking about how do I need to train that person to get to the next level. So this is where the activities and the development plans can be used, where, you're targeting someone, they're a high performer. You want them to succeed to the next level. So you come up with, a development plan that will get them there. And so you basically, all these different tie-ins. And certainly, the biggest data tie-in is just core HR, right? Because all your data within the L&D module is stemming from all your employee data. A few additional notes as well on the notifications and reminders. So you can do mass notifications. So we talked a little bit about that already. There's also a delivered wait list, and this can be either automatic or manual. So you can automatically say this class only gets 10 people. As soon as it fills up, people go on the wait list. Or you might want to make it a little more manual if it's kind of a flexible, well, we would like 10 people, but we could probably have 15. So from an employee perspective, it's very clear to them if they're on the wait list or not. And then from the administration perspective, you can kind of manage that wait list as you need. And then there are virtual meeting integrations available. Right now, those are Teams, Zoom, and WebEx. There is another option for just other meeting types. Some of you may notice that Google Meets is not on here. The client we're currently working with, we have gone through and configured the Zoom side of this. But certainly you can configure these other items if that's what your company uses. And so what this means is essentially, as instructors are setting up those sessions, it will automatically fire off the Zoom invite or the Teams invite to all the participants. So it kind of takes the manual piece of managing the invites off of the instructor or the administrator, whoever's doing the setup. And it's kind of it's done through the system. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Eric, for TA.
Thank you. All right. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Today we're going to be talking about the TA enhancements. There's really 4 main pieces of the enhancements that have been made to talent acquisition. These include the configurable job application, configurable hiring workflow, transition management, and the new candidate experience. Really, the big thing is that I like to call out about, the 4 new enhancements is the consistent look and feel within the Infor application from point of hire or point of application to your first day at your organization. So that was something that wasn't, present as a part of kind of the legacy TA system within Infor, but they've done a really good job of enhancing that look and feel and kind of that candidate experience or user experience when going through the, talent acquisition process. Do you want to go to the next slide, Allison? All right. So the first piece of this is the configurable job application. The configurable job application was a pretty recent enhancement from Infor that allows us to completely customize and configure our job application process. With this job application process, we can define the different tasks and processes that a candidate goes through when it comes to their job application. We can define multiple of these different configurable job applications or application processes for your applicants to go through. The big thing I like to call out is, let's say we have a clinical application or a corporate application. Typically there's going to be different prompts that we want to prompt our candidates with to provide, different information. And so within the configurable job application, we can configure 2 different application processes and associate them with requisitions. This way, your candidates, as they're applying for your organization, aren't filling out unnecessary information, right? In kind of the legacy TA system, there was one application process where a user has to, enter certain information, even if it doesn't pertain to their specific job type. So with the configurable job application and the ability to have multiple application processes, we really, eliminate the need for candidates to provide unnecessary information. These application processes can also be tied with positions within your system. So you can associate, certain positions with these application processes, and ultimately they'll flow down to requisition. Another big thing that I like to call out about the configurable job application updates is the ability to route additional job application tasks to users as they apply. For example, let's say you see a application come in, and maybe you have questions or other specific information that you would like to garner from that candidate. You can very, very easily route them an additional task. It will basically send them an email and prompt them to log in, kind of revisit their application and provide kind of that additional information that you're looking to gather. Do you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, Allison? All right. The second piece of this is the configurable hiring workflow. So, once a candidate has actually submitted their application, what are the steps that they go through in order to be hired by your organization? Similar to configurable job application, we can also define multiple different hiring workflows within the system. So we can, for example, have a different hiring workflow for a same-day hire compared to a senior level hire, right? A same-day hire, we're going to want a very abbreviated hiring workflow process to, get them in the door, right? Let's say I'm sitting down at a career fair and we're looking to hire people today. We can build out specific hiring workflows that can be used when you're kind of going through that process. We can also, have more extended hiring workflow processes. Let's say we're, having a senior level hire, a typical hire, maybe we do 1 or 2 interviews. Senior level hire, maybe we do 5. We have the ability to configure and track that within the system to allow those senior level applicants to go through that more advanced hiring workflow. One of the big and probably the best part of the configurable hiring workflow is the addition of these very easy to configure, easy to set up automations within that hiring workflow. The big thing is less button clicks for recruiters, able to actually spend more time doing higher value things than, advancing someone through the hiring workflow or performing very manual, repeatable actions that can easily be automated. So I think the enhancements within the configurable hiring workflow really allow your recruiters to spend less time, doing the manual button clicking within the system. If you go ahead to the next slide, Allison, we have kind of an example of the automations that we can define within these hiring workflows. Within the one that we're looking at right now, when a candidate enters the offer extended step, what happens is we change the offer status. So we basically automatically extend that offer to our candidate. We create a note within the job application saying the offer was extended to our candidate, and we go ahead and send an email to our hiring manager to let them know that the candidate's offer has been extended. So this is a great example of something that kind of within that legacy TA system would be 3 separate manual button clicks where you know exactly what you need to do, but you still have to go in and do it. With the configurable hiring workflow automations, we remove the need for things like that, which I think is a huge win. The final piece of this and kind of that new applicant workflow is transition management. Transition management is a completely electronic pre-board and onboarding solution. And what it allows you to do is at the time of kind of, maybe I just accepted an offer from this organization, we can automatically, using things like our configurable hiring workflow automations, route our candidate a pre-board program within the system to go ahead and gather additional information that we didn't gather during the application process. I think one big example of this is, some organizations are wary of gathering things like SSN, maybe date of birth during the application process, is that can tend to turn candidates off from submitting their application. The first thing I have to do to apply to an organization is hand out my SSN. Maybe I'm going to think twice. With pre-boarding, what we're able to do is, skip that step during the application process. But, once they've been moved through kind of the hiring workflow and we're at a point where, okay, we've defined an offer for you, you've accepted it, let's go ahead and gather that additional information that's necessary to complete the hire action within the Infor application. What I really like about transition management is the consistent look and feel that the applicant goes through within their life cycle, right? The UI and UX of the job application, the hiring workflow, and transition management is all the exact same throughout the entire process. So I think it makes it very intuitive and easy to use for our candidates as they're being pre-boarded and onboarded into your organization. Transition management also very easily integrates with other TA enhancements. Another good example of a hiring workflow automation is, let's say a candidate completes their pre-boarding program, we automatically move them to a step in the hiring workflow that says, okay, they've completed the pre-boarding program, we are ready to perform the hire action on this person. We've gathered all the information that we needed to gather, and we're ready to move forward. So it integrates very, very tightly with the other pieces within TA. On top of this, there's a lot of delivered content and delivered forms within transition management to gather common information that we see across all industries within the system. For example, demographic information, direct deposit, disability, so on and so forth. On top of this, we can route tasks to our managers, recruiters, IT, for them to go ahead and perform these actions within the system. One kind of common thing we'll see is going ahead and creating a task and assigning it to, for example, IT at the point of, I've completed my onboarding program or I've started my onboarding program. This person needs to, for example, their AD account needs to be provisioned. They need access to additional applications. Things like that we can very easily route internally, not necessarily to our candidate, but to people internally within the organization for them to go ahead and complete as a part of that onboarding or pre-boarding process for your candidates or employees. And like I said, the same end user experience, I think, is kind of a big win when it comes to these TA enhancements. The final piece is the new candidate experience within the talent acquisition suite. So in the past, there is a specific candidate-space.zip file that is used to kind of configure your job board that's used within Infor. This candidate-space.zip file is a pain to work with, and B, needs to be updated each time you take on a CU. That process is very time consuming and kind of a heavy process that needs to be tested each and every time you take on a CU. And ultimately, no matter kind of the configurations or customizations you make to it, it won't have that exact same look and feel as the rest of the TA module does. With this new candidate experience, specifically the jobs web application, this end user interface matches exactly with what they'll see within the job application, the hiring workflow, and transition management. So it just creates consistency across the board within that candidate lifecycle that I think is very beneficial. On top of this, with the new jobs web application, we have improved registration capabilities that allow us to, for example, require CAPTCHA, add multiple email addresses. So one thing I know, a lot of clients go through within talent acquisition is I have a candidate who's applied from, multiple of their email addresses, right? So it's really one candidate with two candidate profiles within your system. With the new jobs web application, this kind of new candidate experience, we're able to allow candidates to associate multiple email addresses with their candidate profile. And that way they can kind of use either one, and you won't have to worry about creating kind of duplicate candidate profiles within the system. And then the final thing I like to touch on is that within the internal candidate experience, so if I'm an internal employee already, but I'm looking to apply for a promotion or a transfer, whatever it may be, we have the ability to create job alerts within the system where an employee or even a candidate can create these job alerts, fill out a couple of different things that they're looking for. This is the job title or the location, things like that. And once a job has been posted, they'll automatically get a notification, hey, a job matching your job alert has been posted. You can go ahead and log into the system. So kind of prompts your candidates to come log in and apply to jobs that are exactly what they're looking for. So overall, I think there's been a ton of enhancements within really, the entire TA module. But the thing I think is the most impactful is that consistent look and feel throughout the candidate lifecycle. The next thing that I like to talk about is the automated user provisioning that kind of ties in with these TA enhancements. Within your Infor application, we can basically configure your hire and rehire actions to automatically provision user accounts within Infor, do things like assign default security roles. So commonly, we'll set the default security role to employee ST, and in-basket user ST is those are roles that, most likely all employees are going to need. We can also associate different security roles with our positions. These can be HR security roles or FSM security roles. The one limitation is we cannot associate WFM security roles with these positions, but overall, I think a big win because we can remove the manual provisioning of security roles for our users as they're hired, transferred, or promoted within your organization. On top of that, the IFS user can automatically be generated, actor context automatically generated, and really the hire and rehire actions within GHR or TA can be the drivers for your user provisioning within the system. The next thing I'd like to touch on is the different delivered integrations with the new TA enhancements. These are all part of the core product. There's no custom integrations required, no custom development, and they're incredibly easy to go ahead and set up. Really takes about an hour for each, and then you're up and running for your I-9s and your W-4s, and we can embed, for example, their I-9 and W-4 information for them to fill out within the onboarding or pre-boarding programs within your system. So I think a couple of big wins there as we can handle all of that in one singular system, where I'll commonly see clients pushing their candidates to a third-party I-9 system, right? Which does not have that consistent look and feel. It may not be super intuitive to their end user. So kind of having that all wrapped up and having Infor be your one-stop shop for these candidates, I think is a big win. Another thing that was very recently released as of this past July is the advanced interview scheduling. This is another thing that's very easy to set up. It requires that your employees go ahead and link their calendars within Infor, which is a very simple process. You basically log into employee space and click a button and then go log into your email or calendar provider, and it'll automatically integrate that within Infor, and we can use this within interview scheduling to see real-time availability for your employees to go ahead and schedule these interviews. So for example, if I'm a recruiter trying to schedule an interview for my hiring manager, and my hiring manager has their calendar linked within the Infor system, they can tell exactly when you're available and schedule all of the interview right there within Infor, where, in current state, maybe they have to go in Infor and then go check the hiring manager's calendar, come back to Infor and schedule it that way. I think, that's a pretty cool feature within kind of the talent acquisition suite. Finally, I always like to touch on the upcoming iCIMS integration and partnership. This will be a completely Infor delivered integration. So I know a lot of clients who do use iCIMS in conjunction with Infor, and they have multiple custom integrations with no kind of support from Infor support. Going forward, there will be these delivered integrations and partnerships. You can do things like pick your integration point when that candidate kind of flows over from iCIMS to Infor and things like that. So another exciting integration on the horizon. All right. So the next kind of underutilized module within Infor that I really like to touch on is the health and safety module. The health and safety module consists of two pieces: occupational health and safety management. Occupational health is used to track employee health requirements. This is something that's very common nowadays within every industry. The big example that I like to call on is COVID vaccine requirements, right? The occupational health module allows you to very easily track all of that information within your HR system and have one centralized location to kind of interrogate your employees' HR record, right? So not only just their pay information, benefits information, but also kind of their health information as well. We can also upload documentation and things like that live on within the Infor system. We can automatically require certain health components or health series to be completed upon position movement. So for example, if it's a requirement that everyone uploads or provides their COVID vaccine information at the time of hire, if the COVID vaccine is linked to the position that they're being hired into, they will automatically be assigned the COVID vaccine health component and be prompted when they log into the system to go ahead and input this information. Ultimately, that flows back to your kind of health administrator for them to review and approve within the system. We can also very easily schedule appointments within the system. These can be group or individual appointments that automatically send out like email meeting invites. So it's very easy to set up and use from not only the kind of health administrator, but also the employee perspective. And finally, we can intelligently calculate due dates and renewal dates and expiration dates within the system to make sure that, for example, if my fit test is expired, I'm aware of that and the occupational health team is aware of that. So I can, remember to go and, complete my fit test for this year, for example. The next piece of health and safety is the safety module. So the safety module or safety management is this integrated safety management solution within the core application. We can track observations of safety incidents. We can track investigations, near misses. We can classify an incident as safe behavior. There's lots of opportunities within the safety management module. And on top of this is very tightly integrated with employee relations. So if we have a safety incident, we can turn that into a grievance, which will ultimately require an employee to complete a resolution. And with this safety management module, there is delivered OSHA reporting right there within the system. So overall, I think this occupational health and safety module is a very powerful tool that I don't see a lot of Infor customers taking advantage of, but I think has many benefits for your organization. So with that, I'll kick it back over to Allison.
We want to talk about employee preview. So what does this mean? So employee preview is really the terminology for what is, I guess I'll call an updated employee space. The reason it's called employee preview is you as an organization can add an employee preview type role so that in your dropdown, you can see what it will look like and you can kind of make the decision, do I want to implement this at my company? But what you're seeing here on the screen is a picture of what this updated employee space view looks like. It's much more consolidated. To me, it's much more intuitive. All the menu items just seem to be grouped better. If we think about the current, or I'll call it the old employee space, that was built over time, over changes in modules, over changes in functionality. And there's even menu items on there that link back to S3 for pay stubs and different things like that, where this updated employee experience is built with the future in mind. For one, it's completely mobile enhanced. So if you go onto on mobile, whether it's through Infor Go or on the web, this employee space is built for that. But also it's just, it's built for the type of modules and functionality that's out there. So everything related to pay, now that payroll is a component of Cloud Suite, everything related to pay is found right under the pay link. You can look at your paychecks, you can do W-4, you can look, you can do your direct deposit, where in the old employee space, that stuff is kind of scattered all about. So this is something I would just recommend, or say everyone go take a look at it. In the Infor Docs user guide, there's quick instructions of how you can at least enable that employee preview, so that you as the administrators, you can look and see what it could look like for your organization. And then you could kind of, make a determination from there of if this is something you want to move forward with. For new customers that are implementing, we always recommend, let's go this route. Again, just for all the reasons we mentioned, we think this is the future, and it's just a better look and feel. And then another kind of small topic here is just around Infor Go. So Infor Go is the mobile application. You certainly can, get to employee manager type space without Infor Go. You can just go to the web pages, the URL. But if you're a customer that, for example, is maybe running HR and financials, the Infor Go app is great because it's all right there in one. It's kind of like when you log in the browser, and at the top, you can toggle between the two. But even if you're just HR talent, you might want more of an app for your employees and managers versus, just telling them to go to the website. So it is enabled for HR and FSM. Really, you can get access anywhere, and there's Apple and Android support. And this is just a little picture of what it looks like. There are flags on your organization setup or within HR Talent setup, where you can determine, what types of icons do I want my employees to see? Do I want paychecks to show on mobile? So different things that you can toggle with to configure it a little bit. And now I'll turn it back to you, Eric.
All right, we'll go ahead and finish up with a couple more technical items, but I think kind of key pieces of the Infor application. that I think are exciting new enhancements. So the first one is the Integration Architect. The Integration Architect web app is a new web app within the Infor application that gives us kind of a unified viewpoint into all of our integrations within the Infor HR Talent application. So, here we can come in and see information on our Loss Center S3 integration, the WFM integration, the LMS and expense management integrations. It kind of gives you that one unified dashboard for kind of your technical resources or people who are in charge of these different integrations to go and view the different integration points and make sure that things are flowing over smoothly. I think the big and kind of most exciting piece of the Integration Architect is the addition of the File Creation Utility, or the FCU, as you'll hear me refer to it as. This is a very powerful built-in feature that allows you to very, very, very easily create flat files within your application. In the past, building out these flat files and things like this would have required the development of an IPA flow, so a pretty strict technical knowledge of the system in order to build out something like that. Within the new file creation utility, really anyone with 20 minutes of training and knowledge of the data structures and how the data is stored within Infor HR Talent can pick up and start running with the creation of these flat files within the FCU. The big piece of this is that there's no programming required. We can very easily just reference fields, do data mapping, substrings, kind of more complex topics or more complex actions, but the file creation utility makes it super easy and super intuitive to perform those kind of actions on your flat files. On top of this, this really reduces the burden of maintenance for these flat file interfaces. Let's say, oh, well, we added a new relationship status, but we didn't have it mapped, right? It's very easy to come in and go ahead and add a new mapping within the file creation utility without having, expansive technical knowledge. In the past, making that change to IPA would be, quite a bit more difficult compared to updating an FCU. On top of this, we can link our FCUs to either ION data flows or IPA flows to automatically upload our files to SFTP sites. Is commonly, they're going to be ingested by third-party vendors. So it's really that full-fledged integration solution within Infor that I think reduces a lot of the time to develop, as well as the burden of maintaining and updating these different interfaces. Right now, I will call out this is only for HR Talent, but according to Infor, building out the file creation utility for the financials and supply chain application is coming. It is on their roadmap. I think the last time I heard they said mid-2023. So that'll be an exciting new addition to the FSM application as well. Next, I'd like to touch on a couple of cool features within Infor OS. Allison, if you could go to the next slide and just go ahead and go another one. All right. So the first one of these is the Infor Data Fabric application. This is kind of an integrated data warehousing solution that contains a data lake. We are able to very, very easily define replication sets from the Infor application to push them to our data lake. There are also numerous delivered replication sets that automatically push this data to the data lake. Ultimately, it pushes JSON data on over, but the coolest feature, I think, is that the ability to write SQL against this JSON data. We're able to write, SQL queries, which is, commonly what we see people are, most familiar with. against non-relational databases. That makes it a very powerful tool for kind of things like historical reporting and things like that within your organization. We can also connect to third-party databases using Infor Data Fabric. The next piece are Infor API flows. Within Infor OS, we're able to define these different Infor API flows that allow us to chain API calls together and really come in handy for creating real-time integrations with third-party systems. In the past, the burden would be on kind of that third-party system to, make one API call, then make another, and then another. With these Infor API flows, we're able to surface an endpoint for our third-party vendors to go ahead and post to. And then on our end, given that we are in the Infor application most familiar with the data structures, how things should work, we can create our own API flows that do kind of the chaining of API calls. For example, if we have a data point that needs to hit 3 different tables, we're very easily able to kind of create those API flows to automatically perform those actions when our third-party system, touches one endpoint. We go ahead and go to the perfect. Another one I like to touch on is the Infor HR Talent Analytics. This is kind of the burst reporting tool or application for HR talent. It's this integrated business intelligence solution with tons and tons of delivered collections and reports that require very, very minimal setup, but allow you to get a lot of trend analysis and high-level insights into your organization. On top of this, Infor just released a new content update that adds additional reports and dashboards and things like that within HR Talent Analytics as of the 2022-09 release. If you are on multi-tenant, this won't automatically be applied. You do need to create a ticket with Infor support to work with them to get this applied. But overall, there is some new content out there if you are currently using HR Talent Analytics. Another very, I think, practical feature within Infor OS is the addition of mingle home pages. We can build out integrated home pages that reference widgets, which are kind of these little different boxes within our screenshot. We can reference widgets for HR Talent, FSM, WFM, all in one integrated homepage. There are also delivered home pages by Infor, and we have the ability to create custom home pages as well as custom widgets within the system. Right, and the last item that I like to talk about is the Infor Smart Help Context app. This is a pretty new feature from Infor. Again, pretty easy to set up, but what it does is intelligently recognizes where you are within the application and surfaces different user guides and links to Infor documentation for you to review. So it kind of understands exactly where you're looking in the application and intelligently recommends different resources for you. Organizations can also create custom content and link it with certain specific areas within your application. One place where I think this could be very, very beneficial is for open enrollment. With this Infor Smart Help, as organizations are able to upload their own content and determine where it'll be referenced, as an employee is going through open enrollment, we could upload kind of those benefit enrollment guides that a lot of organizations have and have it displayed here under my content for users to automatically review and be prompted to review as they go through open enrollment.
Okay, so I think we've got about 7 minutes here. I know I saw some questions pop in, so I think we'll start with those on chat, but then certainly if anyone has others, feel free to chat. Chandra, I'm not sure how to, could you maybe read them off for us?
Yeah, of course. So the first one we had come in was, we have LMS today and all content and assignments are on the Infor LMS. To implement L&D, would we move off of the external LMS?
Yes. So basically, it would replace your current LMS if you wanted to use learning and development. We would, have to do a migration of all your training activities, assignments, any transcript history that you'd want, et cetera.
All right, thank you. The next one is Integration Architect a good tool for building interfaces to benefit providers, or is it more for Infor to Infor connections?
I would say the integration architect and specifically the file creation utility feature is perfect for creating kind of these flat file interfaces that we go ahead and send to benefit vendors. The one caveat to that would be 834 files. If you're familiar with that file format, it's very commonly used for health, dental, vision plans. There is a separate utility, the HIPAA 834 utility, also available under Integration Architect, that is built out to generate those 834 files. For interface files that are not in the 834 format, I would definitely recommend using something like the file creation utility.
All right, great, thanks. Last one I see in the Q&A right now is, where in Cloud Suite would you construct an Infor API flow? Would that be an ION?
Yeah, so that would be within ION Desk. And within ION Desk, there's a little section to create API flows.
Okay, just a minute, Chandra, because I saw.
Yeah, I see additional
It
questions.
looks like they're private. Okay.
Yeah, we do. Okay, sorry, we have some more in the chat there. So we have, when is the security user created? When they are an applicant or when they're hired? And if when hired, how do they connect to Cloud Suite?
All right. So for an applicant applying through your Infor site, they have to go ahead and create a candidate profile within your system. So the candidate profile will ultimately be separate from the employee profile at the time of hire. But you go ahead and register for a candidate profile. You are stored in the candidate business class, listed in your candidate pool. All information that you upload will be tied with your candidate. And then ultimately, upon hire, your employee profile is created within the system. So when we talk about your employee profile, that's typically linked to, an actor, an agent, an IFS user, and that IFS user can automatically be created on time of hire, depending on how you have your user provisioning configurations set.
Our next one, what is needed in order to use the scheduling functionality? CJA, CHW, candidate experience, all of the above? And then the second part of that is also, is the scheduling limited to interviews, or can we use it for other things like pre-employment testing?
So what is needed is the HCM update from July, so 2022-07 CU. On top of that, it does require using configurable job app and configurable hiring workflow, and linking your calendar to your employee profile. Really, the main place it's designed to be used is within interviews, as the only place that you can really interrogate that information is when you are scheduling an interview. So I would say it's not necessarily delivered to do things like scheduling their pre-employment testing, but ultimately, I mean, it's something you could do. It's not something I would necessarily recommend.
All right, the next one, in regards to safety management, are you able to submit incident reports based off of a security role or job position you have?
So for safety management, the only people that are able to submit incidents are the safety administrator or a facility manager, depending on how you have your system set up within safety management. Safety administrator would be over all, employees. A facility manager role can be defined to say, okay, this person is kind of the safety administrator of this specific location. So those are the users that will be able to report a safety incident or a near miss incident.
Great, and the last two I see are sort of related. Is everything covered today available to organizations on single tenant or just multi-tenant? And the other one specifically asks if Infor Go is available for on-premise customers.
So I can start with the single tenant or just multi-tenant. So everything we covered today, with the exception of learning and development, specifically the SCORM engine, which is what's used to launch and watch the content, should be available in single tenant. Keeping in mind that single tenant customers are typically behind multi-tenant. So for example, when Eric talked about the advanced scheduler coming out in July, I'm not sure exactly where they are in the cycle of pushing, updates out to single tenant customers. But payroll is another example of something that's not available in single tenant, but we didn't cover that today, but just wanted to call that out. I I can see who asked the question, but if there's something specific you want us to look into, if you want to email us, we can certainly look into that, or your info rep would be able to cover that for you. But basically, yes, everything is, it's just typically behind. And then Infor Go for on-premise, I'm not sure. I mean, you'd have to have.
Yeah, if your Infor application is accessible from the public web, which is very uncommon for single tenant or on-premise customers, could you set it up? Yes, I believe so. But chances are you're kind of restricted to a VPN. So unless you're, it's maybe a company provided cell phone that's attached to your network, most likely not.
Okay.
All right, we are at the end of our time, but if you guys have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to the email addresses shared at the beginning or at the end of the session here, or you can find us on LinkedIn, or if you've got a rep contact with an Intellias, any of us would be happy to help answer.
And then I'm going to go ahead and just throw both of our emails in the chat. That makes it easier for anyone. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But appreciate your time today.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good Thursday.